Welcome to the What is Stoicism podcast.
When reading Epictetus's discourses, you quickly begin to notice recurring themes, lessons repeated until they sink into the mind, like grooves carved in stone. One of the most obvious of these is the question of what is truly within our power. Again and again, Epictetus reminds his students that peace of mind depends not on controlling the external world, but on mastering one's inner world, our desires, aversions, and judgments. In one striking passage, he uses the figure of a tyrant to illustrate this principle. A tyrant, he says, vastly overestimates his own power. Such arrogance is inevitable in anyone who mistakes external advantage, wealth, status, or authority for mastery of life. Quote, arrogance is absolutely inevitable in a person, an uneducated person that is, who enjoys some advantage, or at least thinks he does, even if he doesn't. A tyrant, for example, claims to be the most powerful man in the world. End quote. But what is this so-called power, Epictetus asks? What can a tyrant truly do for us, or even for himself? Quote, so what can you do for me with your power? Can you ensure that my desires are never impeded? How could you, when you can't do that for yourself? That my aversions effectively prevent the occurrence of things I want to avoid? No, because you can't do that for yourself. End quote. The tyrant believes that wealth, armies, and influence can bend the world to his will, but all his supposed power evaporates in the face of things beyond human control: disease, misfortune, and death. He may command soldiers, but he can't command fate. He may frighten others into obedience, but he can't quiet his own fear. Epictetus points out that even the tyrant must rely on the expertise of others: a captain to steer his ship, a driver for his chariot, a doctor for his ailments. His authority doesn't make him omnipotent. It only exposes how dependent he is. So what then is true power? According to Epictetus, it's the power to direct our desires and aversions toward the right objects. When we desire only what lies within our control, our own thoughts, choices, and character, we can't be disappointed. When we avoid only what lies within our power to avoid, vice, injustice, and irrationality, we can't be harmed. As he also explains in his Enchiridion, quote, remember that desire holds out the prospect of getting what you desire, and aversion the prospect of not experiencing what you want to avoid, and that the person who feels in his desire suffers disappointment, while the one who experiences what he wants to avoid suffers misfortune. End quote. True power then is self-command. The tyrant, who imagines himself a master of the world, is in truth a slave to his passions, and the philosopher, who governs his own will, is freer than any ruler. This same paradox of apparent power versus real power also lies at the heart of Cicero's Stoic paradoxes. In the 6th chapter, he opens with a scathing question that might have been aimed directly at Epictetus's tyrant. What is this impertinent display in pointing out the fact that you have money? Do you think you're the only one who is wealthy? Cicero's exasperation leaps off the page. For all their pomp, the rich and powerful are deluded, he says, if they think that wealth defines true prosperity. Real richness is not a balance of coins, but a state of contentment. Quote, your spirit alone should be the judge of whether you are rich, not the pronouncement of others or your own possessions. Does your spirit believe that nothing is lacking, that nothing more should be cared for, that it's satiated or even content with the money it has? If so, then I grant that you are rich. End quote. It's a challenge that echoes Epictetus's warning about misplaced desires. The tyrant believes that external goods will secure this happiness. The rich man believes that the weight of his gold will measure his worth. But both are captives of their appetites, hungry still, despite their feasts. Cicero concludes with a definition of wealth that could have come straight from Epictetus himself. Quote, not to be desirous of things is money. Not to love buying things is an income. being content with the things one has is a great and most certain form of wealth. End quote. What, after all, is the use of wealth if it can't bring peace? A fortune can be lost to fire, fraud, or the changing moods of fortune. But virtue, Cicero reminds us, can't be stolen or destroyed. Those who are gifted with virtue alone are rich, he writes, for only they are in possession of something that bears real fruit and lasts forever. Both Cicero and Epictetus, then, lead us toward the same conclusion. The only true wealth and the only true power is wisdom. Wisdom teaches us to direct our desires inward toward the cultivation of character. It frees us from the tyranny of wanting and from the illusion of control. It reminds us that contentment can't be granted by others or purchased with money, but must be built within. The tyrant, for all his crowns and soldiers, is poor. His happiness depends on the obedience of others and the cooperation of fortune. The philosopher, with nothing but virtue for company, is rich. His happiness depends only on himself. It's a reversal that Stoicism delights in, that the beggar who desires little may be wealthier than the emperor who wants everything. So when you next encounter arrogance, the boast of power, the display of wealth, the pretense of control, remember the quiet confidence of Epictetus and Cicero. Remember that the mind disciplined by reason and guided by virtue is invincible and abundant. The tyrant rules others. The wise person rules themselves. And that, the Stoics remind us, is the only rule that truly matters.